Hello friends, and welcome. My name's Popeye, and today we're playing some more Steins Gate Zero. Uh, it's been a hot minute since we played this. I was off on Wednesday, so I guess it's only been a week, but it feels like it's been so much longer. But before we get into that, this game has some pretty mature themes, and I want to make sure everyone who stays here or watches this video later feels comfortable. So if any of these themes do not make you feel comfortable, please, by all means, find some other place to be that will make you feel more comfortable. This game has themes of abuse, rape, assault, death, torture, murder, blood, gore, any of those things against a minor. If you missed any of what I just said, feel free to ask, or take a look down in the description where I have a list of all the trigger warnings that are there. But yeah, so last time we had just started the route for the good true ending. And I think most of what we did was actually the same as the route for the bad ending. Spending time with Mayuri. The only difference being is that Amadeus is still around. Not on our phone, because when Maho and the others left, it got taken off, but we were able to see that Amadeus was still posting on @channel. And we tried to what's the word for it? Provoke them, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And they responded. But other than that, we spent time with Mayuri at the arts and crafts store. We went to the hospital because our friend was there again. And yeah. I think we're now Suzuha back in 1998, I think. So yeah, so we're just gonna continue on with this. I think we're closing in on the end game for this. I mean, there's no more choices; it's just going through the dialogue. So we'll see. I don't think we'll finish it this stream for sure, but you know, maybe like a week from now we might be done it. So that's exciting. So yeah, let's dive into it. It was a very hot day in 1998 when Suzuha said goodbye to Kagari Shina. She'd gone to get food and water from a local store. When she'd come back and opened the hatch, Kagari was inside, screaming. She looked inside and saw that Kagari was slamming her tiny hands down on the control console. Kagari shrank back when she saw Suzuha. And so far this is the same as well. Kagari started to cry. Suzuha relaxed her guard. Kagari had PTSD from her time as a war orphan, and she hadn't fully recovered yet. Mayuri had once told her that she got very frightened in dark and cramped places. It makes sense if waking up in the dark caused a panic attack, and the time machine could only function with Suzuha's biometric authorization. Someone of Kagari's size wouldn't be able to break the console either. Suzuha grabbed one of Kagari's tiny hands to help her up, then led her outside the machine. Hello, Miss Angry. How's it going?
暑い。かがり、約束するんだ。
I can see the pot pie is spreading.
操縦席のスイッチに触ったりするな。いいな。じゃあ、私は仕事にかかるから。I'm
doing well. I just got back from a small mini 3-day vacation. And I still have the weekend, so it's nice that I don't have to go back to work immediately. Suza handed Kagari the provisions she'd bought, then went inside and poked her head into the cargo space under the control console. She connected the IBM 5100 she'd stored there to a portable terminal she'd brought from the future. By all appearances, it was an early 2000 cell phone. Inside was a miniaturized quantum computer from the year 2036, or as future Daru had made it himself. When she booted up the IBM 5100, rows of numbers started to appear on the screen. Kagari was looking in from outside the machine.
2000年問題は勉強したか？施設の学校でちょっとだけ。結局何にも起こらなかったんでしょ？表向きはね。公表されてないけど、実は当時あれのせいでいくつかの地域や国に深刻な問題が起きたんだ。そうなの？問題だったのはこの IBN5100 というコンピューターなんだよ。これには古いプログラム言語が搭載されてるんだけど、そのプログラムの問題点を技術者たちが修正できなかった。というより、そんな言語で書かれた重大なプログラムが存在すること自体全く知られてなかった。第三次世界大戦はタイムマシンの開発競争が発端なんだけど、もしかすると2000年問題で発生したある事象とそれに付随する対立こそがもっと深い原因である可能性がある。
She didn't expect a 10-year-old like Kagari to understand this. She didn't feel like taking the time to explain.
しかも、西暦2000年というのは特殊な年でね。すべての世界線が一旦一つに収束してしまうらしいんだ。それに関連して、この問題があらゆる世界線の因果に重大な影響を引き起こすかもしれない。私たちが目指してる狭間の世界線。シュタインズゲートも例外じゃない。
She looked down at the terminal connected to the IBM 5100.
だからこれは2000年問題を起こさないようにするための修正プログラムなんだよ。
Right now, the terminal was converting the patch into the language used by the IBM 5100. Next step was to spread this program all around the world in the form of a virus. In the year 2000, problems that this era's engineers missed would completely disappear. The word connect appeared on the terminal's subscreen.
Okay. つながった。
You'd been told that in Japan in this era, ADSL was still in the test phase and most normal users connected to the internet by slow-speed dial-up using ISDN. Pretty sure we read that one already. So IDSN is Integrated Services Digital Network. A completely digital network that used digital exchanges, relays, and subscriber lines. It's far faster than the analog lines that were originally used by dial-up internet services, but use massively decreased after the introduction of faster ADSL. ADSL is Asymmetric Digital Subscriber Line. A type of internet connection, ADSL uses telephone lines for high-speed data transmission. In the early 2000s, these quickly replaced ISDN as the de facto method of connecting to the internet, but in the later part of the decade, FTTH services using fiber optic became more popular. FTTH is fiber to the home, and the number of ADSL users has declined ever since. But in major cities like Akihabara, universities, labs, and some big computer companies were starting to use fiber optic broadband. Some of them were even using wireless LANs. Suzuha cracked her way into one of those. Dad had laughed when he'd said that with 2036 technology, cracking into late 20th century network security was a joke, but he'd been right.
でも、 ちゃったらかがりたちがいた未来の世界も全然変わっちゃうんじゃないの？
Surprisingly, Kagari had gotten the gist of what Suzuha had just told her.
そういうことだ。もうあの世界は存在させない。私たちはシュタインズゲートを目指すためにここへ来たんだから。
Suddenly, the uneasy look on Kagari's face vanished. It was as if her soul had left its body. Suddenly, her face was expressionless and her eyes were wide.
声、神様の声、聞こえる。かがり？ダメだよ。よくないよ。ダメなんだよ、鈴葉お姉ちゃん。そんなことしちゃいけないんだ。おい。
Kagari was acting strangely. Suspiciously, Suzuha reached her hand out towards her. But she slipped past Suzuha's hand. Quicker than any child should be able to move, she slammed her shoulder straight into Suzuha's body. Suzuha was caught completely off guard. That's how fast it was. Kagari's shoulder hit her in the solar plexus. She bent over and collapsed onto the seat. Kagari tore the terminal out of Suzuha's hands. The cables connecting it to the IBM 5100 were ripped out and errors displayed on both screens. Kagari didn't answer the question. Instead, she grabbed the backpack that Suzuha had placed on the seat and spilled its contents onto the floor. There were MREs, spare parts, clothes, and a semi-automatic pistol. Suzuha couldn't believe it. Kagari was going to try and pick it up. She forced herself to ignore the pain as she jumped on Kagari's body. But another unbelievably powerful body slam knocked her back. Something cold was pushed up right against her brow. Kagari's tiny hands weren't shaking at all as they clutched the semi-automatic pistol. In the space of an instant, the safety on the gun had been flipped off. That's when Suzuha realized this wasn't just a temper tantrum. Suzuha was the one who taught her how to use a gun. That's why she knew that Kagari was perfectly calm. There was no hesitation in her eyes. Instead, Suzuha saw only resolve. Dang it, hero! At least you finally accepted Ella's new name. How are you doing? We're just being held up by a small child, that's all. We're getting drunk. We isn't. I'm glad you're not getting your dog drunk. That's good. Kagari turned the gun towards the IBM 5100. Before Suzuha could stop her, she yanked down on the trigger. Again and again. Then Kagari jumped out of the time machine, and Suzuha never saw her again. On every night that passed, she remembered Kagari. Suzuha had spent some time looking for Kagari when she'd first come to this era. In the end, she never found anything. But Kagari Shina, who was now 22 years old, was here in Akihabara. Suzuha was sure of it.
おう、マホタン、オスオス。
Taro was sitting at the computer next to Souza and talking into his monitor. The monitor was displaying a video chat screen. On the screen was a young girl dressed in slovenly fashion. No, a proper, fully grown lady. Gosh dang it, game. That's better than I thought was on Daru's screen, I'll be honest. Everyone remembers their favorite video chat application, Kype, right? 60 more points for Scold. Samus's will be mad if he's not the first person to get the Scold. He's the one who asked for it. It was 8:30 p.m. at the Future Gadget Lab in Akihabara. Meanwhile, Victor Condra was an hour off from usual due to daylight savings time. Game! Stop making me do math! Thank you for the host, Miss Angry. Even my games can't escape the fact that there's time zone differences. It was 7:30 a.m.
ヒヤジョーさん、大丈夫？
この時間だし寝起きっしょ。
Maho was a mess. Her hair was never combed right. Her eyes were bloodshot and her gaze was wandering. The spots under her eyes were too dark for the little bit of makeup she'd applied to cover them. Her cheeks were sunken, which made her look even tinier than usual. On top of all that, her skin was terribly pale. It looked like something out of a zombie movie.
低血圧マホタンも燃える。
Please don't encourage anemic, like, consume proper food. Normally, she would have gotten upset at Ataru's joke. But either she'd gotten used to it, or simply given up because she said nothing.
そっちの進展はどう？
なんとかオカリンが分解しちゃう前の状態に組み立て直したを。機能はほぼ再現できてると思われ。
Taro glanced towards the development room, past the curtain in the back of the lab. Hero, you stop that. Don't you spend those points here. You have much better things you could spend your points on than this Scold. But you asked for this, so you're getting it. You could have had, what, 3 stretches? You were all, what, 60% of the way to a juggle? You could have made me drink a buttload of water like Deadbeard does, but no, you decided to waste your points like this, and you also wasted a bunch of time on this channel. Shame on you. There you go, you've had the first Scold. I hope that was worth it. Right now, he was working with Maho to create what Okabe had called the Time Leap Machine.
うまくいかないの？
なんか安定しないっつうか。
It did.
電子レンジになっちゃうんだよね。
Now, how much of that was the Scold itself, and how much of that was just that you could say you got the first ever Scold?
そう。何がいけないのかしらね。
オカリンにそこんところの話を聞ければ違ってくるんだけどな。
無理だよ。私たちがこんなことしているって知っただけで怒鳴り込んでくるよ。
I'm still actually trying to figure out the value of the Scold. Because originally I just made it and I put it at 10,000. I'm like, I'll figure it out later. And then Samus's complained that 10,000 was too much, and I was like, you're probably right. Then I dropped it to 3,000. We'll have to see. I think that's an alright amount. Welcome, Samus's. I guess you get to redeem the stretch since the Scold has already been redeemed. You don't get the first Scold. Lurk Eternal? You're just forever lurking now? Okay. Oh, let's move this camera up. You're not here tonight? You weren't here? Then why am I stretching? What's this stretch for then? I see. Are you too busy playing the new Phasmo update? Oh, you wanted to see the fingers? There you go. Yes, there was a very large update for Phasmo that was released, I think it was Thursday, that includes changes to evidence, including new ghosts, new ways it can, like, hunt and kill you. I haven't personally played it yet. I might be playing it with some friends tomorrow. We'll see. You're watching Cutthroat Kitchen tonight? Yeah, that's totally understandable. Phasmo tomorrow night? I can probably do tomorrow night. Alright, there was your stretch. No, I almost ran over my cable for my controller. Alright. But yeah, you can check out the patch notes for it. I was reading the patch notes earlier today. They also collapsed the motion detector and the light one, because I never understood the light one. And the new one they added, I haven't really looked at it, but I think it emits some kind of like light that if the ghost passes in front of it, leaves an image. Also, some other things is if there's a hunt, it used to be that like every person's flashlight would blink. Now it only blinks if the ghost is near. So if you're in the house but far away from the ghost, you might not know that a hunt is taking place. Also, electronic equipment draws the ghost to your location. So if you have, I don't know, like the thermo or the parabolic microphone or anything like that, and you leave it on, the ghost will come at you during the hunt. It knows where you are. Hello, Chaos. You've been summoned? Okay, now we have to exercise Chaos.
おじさんは恐れているんだ。世界線の収束する力というものを。あの人を説得するのは容易じゃない。
You play the unsummon card, and Chaos disappears. In fact, it had almost been a year since she'd first tried and failed. There was a moment of silence for Chaos as he had been banished to the Shadow Realm. Maho's whole body jerked and she almost fell out of her chair. Chaos go back to fork knife.
つーか、頑張りすぎだお。無理して体壊したら意味なくね。
このくらい平気よ。というか、これだけやってもまだ天才にはかなわないんだから。
そんなことないと思うけどな。僕はさ、魔法炭だって十分天才だと。
気休めなら不要よ。岡部さんの言っていたタイムリープ、こんなにヒントはあるのに、未だに解を見つけられないんだもの。記憶データなんて膨大なものをどうやって圧縮して過去へ送ることができたのか。クリスはそれをやってのけたっていうのに。
Maho seemed upset. It was obvious even through the monitor.
ああ、ごめんなさい。愚痴をこぼしている場合じゃなかったわね。今日の報告、他に何かあるかしら。なければそろそろ出勤しようと思うのだけれど。もう一つある。
Suzuha looked at Ataru.
前から調べてほしいって頼まれてた件について。
何か分かったの？はっきりしたことはまだ。そう。
あちこちのネットワークに強引に侵入したりとかギリギリまではやってみたんだ。
別に責めたりしないわ。今分かっていることを教えてちょうだい。
いや、むしろ激しく罵倒とかしてくれて OK なわけだが。
父さん、早くして時間が来ちゃうから。
ほいほい。
Yatara opened a different window on the monitor. He displayed one of the text files in it. It was a record of the information Yatara and Souza had collected.
まずマホタンたちがホテルの地下駐車場で襲われた事件。警察の発表だと新興カルト教団の男が違法薬物を使った末にって話になってるけど、あれ間違いなく嘘だわ。
嘘？
犯人の身元は警察発表通り某大学の准教授。これはいいんだけどさ、そいつが宗教団体に所属してたっつう事実がこれっぽっちも出てこないんだよね。公安が隠し持ってる教団員のデータにもアクセスしてみたから確定。
捏造ってことなのね。
アットチャンネルとか見てるとさ、信者っぽい人が時々書き子するんだよね。教団は無実だとか陰謀だとか。そうすると一瞬でものすごい数の教団アンチが湧いてきてフルボッコなわけ。
Okay. Haters, people on the internet with a negative opinion about a certain person or thing. They'll go wherever fans of that person or thing gather and deliberately write things to provoke them. They often get into heated debates with fans. Beat the Daylights, a one-sided battle in which the target gets the daylights beaten out of them. Thank you, game. That was very educational. Totally needed.
しかもそのアンチども、もっともらしい偽の証拠とかガンガン出してくるんだよ。画像付きとかで。いくらなんでもあれはちょっと異常。
そうなの？私、そのアットチャンネルというのをあまりよく知らないから。
アットちゃん含めてさ、大抵の大手サイトには工作員が張り付いてるもんなんだよ。しかもビジネスとしてバイト代もらってね。朝から晩まで24時間ぶっ通しで。
情報操作、プロパガンダだね。
Okay, we're also explaining what propaganda is. An advertisement for a specific ideology, primarily used for political and religious purposes. Propaganda has been around since the time of the Roman Empire, beginning in the 20th century, particularly after the end of the Second World War. Its methods have become more insidious. One example of this new propaganda would be attempts to manipulate public opinion via mass media. Propaganda advertisements are not always true, and most of the obvious of them include lies or slander towards their targets if it's at their wielder's advantage.
政治家や官僚なんかもネット世論の誘導に利用してるし、それを専門にしてる会社もあるくらいだお。
なるほど。それならわかるわ。そのあたりはアメリカも日本も同じね。
でも工作員なんて僕からしたら IP 変えてもバレバレなんで。それでチェックしてみたら、あの事件すごい人数の工作員が投入されてるっぽい。どこからそんなに金が出てるんだよってレベル。
そう。父さんのバイト先が襲われた方の事件は？
そっちも同じ。
Police had called it a fight between foreign mafias trying to expand their territory in Japan. The media never questioned the story at all, and even people on the boards of the famously skeptical channel believed everything they were told. Of course, there was no mention whatsoever of Russia or CERN.
でさ、試しに目撃者を装ってロシアの特殊部隊を見たってすれ立ててみたんだよね。そしたらまあすごいのなんの、炎上しすぎてびっくりしたお。あん時は思わず工作員の本名から会社名まで全部晒してやろうかと思ったっつうの。
But we're not explaining what doxing is, okay? Evidently, he'd been really irritated. Rare for Yatara to get so angry. Or maybe it wasn't, she decided.
つまり、どこかから圧力がかかっていて幕引きにされたってことね。さすがは 自由の国日本だけのことはあるわ。
アメリカも似たようなもんじゃね？
違いないわね。
The two of them smiled at the joke.
つうわけで、僕としてはお手上げ。
そう。それで十分よ。調べてくれてありがとう。ヒアジョーさん、研究所から来日の許可は下りそうなの？それが、レスキネン教授の助手として連れて行ってもらえるよう何回も申請しているのだけれど、却下の連続なのよ。レスキネン教授は今こっちに来てるんだっけ？ええ、新型脳炎の調査でね。
Since it had nothing to do with artificial intelligence, it seemed Maho wouldn't be allowed to go along.
いいわ。どうしてもダメと言うなら、こっちにも考えがあるもの。どうする気？
まさか上官の命令無視してでも正義を貫くとか？そして悪に捕まってしまうんですね。わかります。
Taru,
ねえねえ、
not mention your hentai.
殺せって言ってみて。できればすごく悔しそうな顔で。
は？父さん。
Yuzu's hand went for her back pocket.
させん。
Come on, stun gun! Taru's shoulders slumped as he apologized. Lately, she'd been able to put a stop to Taru's terrible jokes just by doing that. She wasn't sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing that she knew exactly how to handle him.
ま、とにかく近々そっちへ行くわ。わかった。日程が決まったら連絡を。
Thank you for stopping in and good luck with your jab.
それとヒアジョーさん、出勤するならもう一度鏡を見てからにした方がいい。
Just before they ended the call, Suzu decided to warn her. Maho stood up and walked towards the closet without turning off the camera. He vanished from view, but a moment later... You must have seen how terrible she looked, because she let out a very unfeminine scream. They relaxed for a moment after turning off the video chat. Suzu had thought back to the time before she'd become a time traveler. Did this every time she got off the video chat with Maho.
タイムマシン開発の協力者、ヒアジョー・マホか。
It was after Maho had gone back to America that she'd volunteered to help Suzuha and Itaru with the time machine. That meant when Itaru Hashida completed the time machine 25 years from now, Maho Hiajo must have contributed in some way. But...
あんまり未来のことを言うのはまずいんだけど、父さんの仲間にそんな名前の人いなかったんだよね。
え、そうなん？
ということはさ、どこかのタイミングで開発メンバーから抜けるってことなんじゃないかな。自分の意思なのか、それ以外の外的要因なのかはわからないけど、少なくとも開発の主要メンバーじゃなかったと思う。
そうなのか。かなり頼もしい人だけどな。
こんなことを言いたくはないけど、どこかのスパイという可能性もある。
いくらなんでもマホタンに限ってそれはないよ。
ごめん。でもそういう可能性もあるっていうことだけは頭に入れておいて。言ったでしょ、第3次世界大戦前の情報戦はもう始まってるんだ。どっちにしろマシンの秘密が無駄に漏れるのは困るよ。それだけは徹底するようちゃんと注意しておいてよね。で、この先のタイムマシン開発はどう進めていくつもり？
やっぱオカリンの協力がないとな。
結局そこなんだよね。オカリンおじさん、やっぱり無理なのかな。こうなったら力ずくで。
前にそれしようとして失敗したのはどこの誰だっけ
She pursed her lips. Even with the gun in his face, Rintaro Karabe still wouldn't get in the time machine. To be honest, Suzuho was out of options. She stifled a sigh. It didn't do any good to let herself get down.
そういえば、母さんとはうまくやれてる？
な？
私、そっちの方も心配なんだ。大丈夫？私が生まれてこなくなるような事態にならないよね。
なんつうの？タイムマシンよりもなんだい？
ちょっと。
Suzuha stormed over to Itaru.
困るよ、父さん。
うん。パパ、頑張るからね。
いっつも口ばっかり。結局、例の映画のチケットも無駄にしちゃったんでしょ？
She meant the pair of movie tickets that Mayuri and Ferris had conspired to give them at the Christmas party.
あれはさ、オカリンと吹雪氏が倒れちゃったじゃん。その後、お見舞いとかでバタバタしてるうちに映画が終わっちゃってたわけで、しょうがないっつうか。
でもその後、新しいチケットを用意しようとしたら断ったって聞いたけど。
誰に？
まゆ姉さんとルミ姉さんに決まってるじゃないか。
そりゃあれだ。マユシとフェイリスタに頼りきりなんて男らしくないっしょ。キリ。
で、自分で何か行動に移したわけ？ダメだこれ。
Maybe this was a more important problem than the time machine. Suzuha brought her hands up to her head.
いい父さん。私、いつまでもこうやってお説教できないんだからね。もうすぐ行っちゃうんだよ。
Suddenly there was a sad look in Ataru's eyes.
そういう顔しない。約束したはずだよ。もう迷うのはやめにしようって。
For the past 6 months, Suzuha had been thinking about whether it was really right to erase this world. In the end, it was none other than Itaru who'd pushed her to go ahead.
ごめん。
Couldn't bear to see her father so depressed, so she patted his broad back.
しょぼくれてないで、母さんにメールして。予定の空いてる日がないか聞いて。で、空いてたら映画に誘う。
いきなりハードル高すぎ。
高すぎでも何でもいいから誘いなさい。いい？これは命令だからね。
命令って。
Just do your job as a mod one moment. What are you doing?
返事は？
さあ、イエスさ。
Satisfied, she headed off to take a shower.
でもその前にちょっとだけコンビニに行ってくる。
何しに？
いや、実は夕食がまだっつうか、今夜も徹夜になりそうだし、遅くならないうちに買い出しようと。
Still hunched over, he pointed towards the development room, pointing at at the phone wave. Name subject to change. Unit 02. Oh, excuse me. That was put together, but still undergoing testing. Never mind, it's done.
睨まないで。なるべく太らないようなものを食べますんで、何卒お許しを。
バニラ。
はい。
私、シャワー出たらアイス食べたい。
Oh, we're back to the shower scenes.
わかった。庶民がなかなか口にできない高級なやつをいっぱい買ってきてあげる。
いっぱいはいらないよ。一つでいい。
さあ、イエス。
What were you looking at, Chaos? I'm curious. Was it that big list of people to ban from Deadbeard? That was enough to cheer Daru up. He took his wallet and ran out of the lab.
やれやれ。 世話がかかるんだから。
She had just about taken off her jacket so that she could take that shower, but...
鈴葉
Tara had come back into the lab.
どうかした？
階段のところにさ、こんなの落ちてたんだよね。
Tara showed her a keychain he was holding. It was a round anime character's color had faded to a smoky green. It was an Upa.
誰のかわかる？
まゆ姉さんじゃないの？
Leaned forward to take a closer look, and then felt like she was experiencing deja vu.
このウーパー、どこかで。
She'd seen it before, couldn't really remember when, but her internal alarms were going off. This keychain was extremely important. Upas were common enough that you could find them anywhere. Plastic edges had worn down, the paint was faded and coming off in places. You made Chaos into a schoolgirl? What have you done, Hero? And why does Drunk Hero have the best memes? There was no dust. There was no stains. Instead it shone brightly, as if the owner had put a lot of effort into taking good care of it. The chain was so old that part of it had snapped off. That was probably how it got dropped.
どこだっただろう。どこかで見た。
まゆしに見せてもらったとか？
そうなのかな。
Yes, Chaos Head is actually the prequel to Steins Gate. Well, prequel, a very loose term prequel. But he made it Chaos and had his face. He stared at the green Upa in Ataru's hands. If you want another meme, there's a spin-off series of that called Chaos Child, and if you have baby pictures of Chaos, you could put that on as well. And then in her mind, she heard a young girl scream. One sec. Yeah, there's a reason I haven't been playing the Chaos series. So first of all, Chaos Head isn't on Steam. Chaos Child is, and it's like a sequel spin-off to Chaos Head. And Chaos Head, in my opinion, was not that great. Like, the first episode, the last episode, if you got rid of the middle and replaced it with like one episode of the main character complaining, you'd have the exact same anime. That's my opinion on it. She gasped. A feeling of indescribable terror raced down her spine.
まさかこれかがりのか。
That was when she'd last seen it, August 13th, 2036. The day she'd gone into the time machine. That's when she'd seen this Upa. It was older and more worn now. The more she remembered that day, the more certain she became. This was the Upa that Mayuri had given to Kagari. She'd seen Kagari holding it and crying to herself many times before.
かがりってもしかして未来のまゆしの娘？
うん。
見つかったん？
いや、でも向こうはこっちを認識しているんだ。
つまりどういうことだってばよ。
あいつこのラボを監視してるんだよ。
Satisfied, she headed off to take a shower. Ever since then, her careful efforts to defend the time machine had paid off, and she hadn't seen any sign of Kagari. She'd never thought she'd be watching the lab.
ちょっと考えれば当たり前のことだったんだ。あいつは私たちがシュタインズゲートに到達するのを阻止しようとしてる。この世界をなかったことにしたくないと思ってる。ということは私だけじゃなく父さんもマークされてる。
え、僕？
まあ父さんの命に危険はないとは思うんだ。世界線の摂理を信じるなら父さんは少なくとも2036年までは生きるはずだし、ただシュタインズゲート到達を阻止するために父さんの研究の邪魔はしてくるかもしれない。
A lot of bad things have been happening around Suzuha, Itaru, and Rentaro Okabe. There was some possibility that the final target was Itaru.
これからは用心のために私がいない時には必ずドアに鍵をかけておいて。
わかった。
オカリンおじさんや母さんやマユ姉さんたちが一緒にいても絶対に開けっぱなしはダメだよ。気休めかもしれないけどドアチェーンもかけた方がいい。
でもさ、オカリンやマユシならともかくアマネシと二人きりの時にそんなことしたらなんか別の意味で怪しくね？アマネシに変な誤解されないかな？
それは確かに。
もしそれで嫌われでもしたら我が家のピンチだお。
Suzuha groaned softly, unsure of what to do.
父さんがもっと早く母さんと恋人になってれば何の問題もないのに。
で、結局そこへ話が戻るとか？
とにかく注意だけはしておいてよね。
Suzuha decided to keep the green Upa keychain. Softly ran her fingertips over it as she stared at it.
なあ、鈴葉、かがりたんって血はつながってないけどマユシの娘なんだよね。
そうだよ。
あのマユシに育ててもらった子が人を襲うような恐ろしい人間になるのかな？なんか鈴葉の話とイメージが重ならないっつうか、もっと優しくてホワホワしてて可愛い女の子になってるんじゃないかなとか思ったり。
だとよかったんだけど。私も前はそうなると信じてたけど今のかがりは多分。
From what she'd seen at the radio building, she could tell Kagari had definitely received professional combat training. It wasn't just the simple self-defense techniques that she'd learned from Suzuha when she was a child. As she'd grown up, she'd been taught the cold techniques of a killer. There was no way to know where she'd been or what she'd been doing ever since she'd gone missing in 1998. Why's the fly always here? How has it not died yet? There was no doubt in Suzuha's mind that she was trying to ruin her plans. We're back to the shower scene. Suzuha sighed as she took her shower. Since it was summer, she'd set the water temperature low. It was barely any hotter than tap water. As long as the water was pouring down on her, she could feel all the bad memories were being washed away. She slapped her cheeks with both hands and turned off the water. The small tiled room suddenly became quiet. In the silence, she vigorously toweled off her hair. This building was never intended for anyone to live in. Not only was there very little room, there wasn't even a place to change. It was small and there were no windows, and the steam from the shower room built up, making it an unpleasant sauna in summer. Supposedly, Itaru and Okabe would sit naked next to the fans to get away from the heat and moisture. Of course, that was only when the girls, as well as Luka Urushibara, weren't around. But Suzuha couldn't do that. There were those huge scars on her chest. If she was careless and Yuki saw them, she'd have a big problem. So she'd always forced herself to change within this small space. The second she left the shower room, she realized something was wrong. The lights were off in the part behind the curtain where the lab was. She was sure she had left all the lab lights on when she'd gone to take a shower. She didn't remember turning them off. Still completely naked, she flung open the curtain. She dropped to the floor, ready to move. You could tell by the light from the shower room that there was no one else there. She didn't hear any breathing, and she didn't feel any other presence.
父さんが一度戻ってきたのか。
And then when he'd left, he turned off the lights? No, that couldn't be right. She looked around the room, saw that things had been moved in a way that an amateur wouldn't be able to notice. Tara's computer desk, the sofa area, the bookshelves, even the mini kitchen. Someone had gone through them all. From the look of it, the same was probably true of the development room. Souza had glanced over all the areas where she'd kept her guns. Closest was the sofa that she used as a bed. She wanted to have one easily available if she was attacked while she slept. She'd cut out the back of one of the sofa cushions and hidden a suppressed semi-automatic pistol in it. It was just a .32 caliber for self-defense, so it wouldn't do much damage unless you had good aim. It was small and relatively quiet, which made it the best choice for a place like this. Souza had tensed all of her muscles, coiling like a spring, and slowly moved towards the sofa without making a sound. As she did, she tried to notice any changes in the surrounding area. There was a small sound in the development room. It was a tiny, tiny creaking of the floor, to which she'd usually pay no mind. That was more than enough for Souza. In an instant, she moved from quiet to action. She cleared the distance to the sofa in a single moment, and quickly drew her gun. She held it ready and slipped into the shadow of the refrigerator. From this position, she could barely see into the development room. The room became silent again, but this time the intruder in the other room didn't try to hide their presence.
おかしな真似をしたら撃つ。手を頭の上に。そのままゆっくり出てこい。
Souza threatened the intruder in a low voice, but the intruder seemed completely unconcerned as they exposed themselves to Souza's gaze.
この暑いのによくそんな格好をしていられるな。ヘルメットだけでも取ったらどうだ？
The intruder was wearing a motorcycle suit just like before, even the helmet was the same. The leather suit clung tight to their skin, revealing a voluptuous and perfectly proportioned body. It was clearly a woman.
あんたが探してるものだけどね。そこにはないよ。私の服のポケットだ。
Souza pointed toward the entrance to the shower room. The shirt she'd just taken off was lying there on the floor. The girl in the motorcycle suit turned her head, but because the face mask was down, Souza couldn't read her expression.
なあ、落としたらダメじゃないか。ママからもらった大切なものだろう。かがり。
The second she spoke, Kagari Shina was the first to move. She drew a Degloss military knife that she must have been hiding behind her back and closed the gap between herself and Souza in an instant. Souza pointed the gun at her legs and pulled the trigger, carefully aiming away from her vitals. She heard the small pop of a suppressed .32 and saw Kagari lose her balance and fall. Or she thought she did, but it was a feint. She only pretended to lose her balance. In fact, she changed direction and was heading for the shower room. It seemed her first goal was to get what she'd come for. After firing only one shot, Souza realized even a .32 should have more recoil than this. She fired again, but Kagari didn't flinch even for a moment. At some point, all the bullets in Souza's gun had been swapped with blanks. That instant's panic was all it took. Kagari reached out for the shirt on the floor in front of the shower room. Souza gave up on firing and flung the gun at Kagari. There was a dull thud as the hard barrel slammed into her neck. Got off balance, she staggered before she could grab the shirt. She could hear Kagari's voice for the first time from within the helmet. Suzuha jumped. She kicked the off-balance Kagari as hard as she could with her tone-muscled legs. This was no time to hold back. You're terrified by this new one? You mean the new Phasmo update or what Hero's working on? Both those are a bit terrifying. Kidding. Kagari went flying all the way to the edge of the room. It had to have broken a few ribs. Suzuha jumped toward her to continue her attack. It's in the Phasmo chat. Perfect. Oh gosh, this anime was so bad. When you have a harem of yourself. With terrifying speed, Kagari leapt off the ground and charged at Suzuha. There wasn't enough time to come to a full stop. A sharp blade swept by mere centimeters from her exposed abdomen. She pulled back even a few tenths of a second later, the knife would have fatally sliced open her gut. The blood rushed to Suzuha's head. Kagari was serious. She was planning to kill her. There was no hesitation in her movements. Suzuha leapt back and searched for something she could use as a weapon. The other guns were probably no different. There was a good chance they'd all had their ammo swapped with blanks too. It was even possible that all her self-defense knives had been taken too, which left... There were several knives carefully stored in the kitchen. Yuki had brought them over to use in teaching the other girls how to cook, but Kagari had evidently noticed them as well. She was moving to keep Suzuha from reaching them.
Hey, ずいぶん離れしてるじゃないか。とてもマシンの中でベソベソ泣いてた子供とは思えないな。驚いたよ。
Suzuha kept her distance from Kagari as she slowly moved along the wall. Her competitive drive burned even brighter as she tried to come up with a way to overcome her disadvantage.
ほら、カガリ、これだろ。
She picked up her shirt from in front of the shower room and took the green keychain out of its pockets.
どうした？取りに来なよ。
Her fingers moved as if to crush it. She could see Kagari twitch. For the first time, she could detect a hint of emotion beyond the helmet. And in an instant, she threw it at Kagari's stomach. The keychain flew in a slow arc, like she was tossing it to a friend. Something they loved was thrown like that. Even the fiercest warrior would instinctively reach out with both hands to grab it. Kagari was no exception. She carefully held her mother's memento in both her empty left hand and the right hand that still clutched the knife. Using the slow arc of the keychain as camouflage, Suzuha ran at her in a straight line. Her right fist connected hard with Kagari's stomach. Then her left arm smashed Kagari's head to the side. Kagari's body fell to the ground, her right shoulder taking the brunt of the fall. Suzuha could hear the sound of her joint dislocating. Knife slipped from her grasp. Suzuha got behind her and mounted her, twisting her right arm mercilessly. And we're gonna censor that bit. At the same time, she slipped her own left arm around Kagari's neck and squeezed hard. That's Kagari gasping for breath. She could hear something like a moan from Kagari's throat. You both hear and feel the bones in her arm and neck creaking.
殺しはしない。
Suzuha says, "Stay put, I'm not going to kill you." But Kagari picked up the knife on the floor with her left hand and once again tried to use it on Suzuha. Suzuha was forced to squeeze her arm and neck even harder.
もうやめろ、ガガリ。今の私にはお前の気持ちだってわかるんだ。
I realized I didn't. Oh, that was just Kagari grunting some more, and Suzuha just says, "Stop it, Kagari. I understand how you feel now, but it's wrong."
間違ってるんだ。
But Kagari didn't stop. If anything, she tried even harder to pull Suzuha away.
こいつ。
And Suzuha's internal monologue says, "What kind of training did she get?" Even in all the battles she'd been in, this much pressure on 2 different spots was enough to get even the toughest soldier to submit or fall unconscious. Terrified, Suzuha squeezed even harder. At this rate, she wouldn't simply knock her out, she really would kill Kagari. But if she stopped, Kagari would kill her. What should she do? And Kagari says, "Big sis Suzuha, it hurts." Then she heard a sad, weak voice from inside the helmet. It startled her, and she relaxed both her arms. That was just what Kagari had hoped for. The knife came very close to cutting Suzuha's left arm. When she let go to dodge it, Kagari shook her off and kicked at her hips with both legs. I think we're safe. Suzuha was slammed back into the computer desk, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. She fell to the floor, and the printer and monitor crashed mercilessly into her naked body. She forced herself to stand up, gasping hard as she did so. Kagari's breathing was heavy too. Her right arm was pointed in an impossible direction and hanging limp. She wouldn't be able to use it for a while, probably. Her left arm was still holding the knife.
お前、随分と汚い真似まで覚えたんだな。
Suzuha glared at Kagari's face, not that she could see what it looked like beyond the helmet. The 2 of them fell silent as they tried to catch their breath. The tension in the air was so thick that it was difficult to move a muscle. Sweat rolled down her forehead and into her eyes, but she still didn't blink as she waited for Kagari to make her next move. It was the sound of the front door opening that broke their stalemate.
Oi, Suzuha! 今すごい音しなかった?
Suzuha felt a chill run down her spine when she heard Itaru's voice.
あれ? なんで真っ暗なん?
ダメだ、父さん。来ちゃダメ。
She yelled at the exact same instant he turned on the lights. The sudden brightness was enough to make Suzuha flinch for an instant. Kagari was wearing a full-face helmet, and that made all the difference. He leapt towards Itaru just a moment before Suzuha. Kagari's black knife went up to his throat. Kagari spun around behind him, using Itaru's huge body as a shield. Suzuha staggered towards him, gritting her teeth.
その手を離せ。かがり。父さんに傷一つでも負わせてみろ。たとえお前でも本当に殺す。
Kagari remained silent as she headed outside the door with her hostage. Then the next moment she shoved him forward. Itaru lost his balance and fell towards Suzuha. Suzuha fell to the ground underneath his weight. Itaru just barely managed to support himself with his arms and legs to keep from crushing her. Suzuha tried to shove him off, using a little more force than she may have intended, but Itaru was so huge it would take him a moment to get up. He was getting away. She somehow managed to crawl out from under him and quickly tried to follow after Kagari. Tara was still lying on the ground as he tossed the naked Suzuha her shirt, grabbed it, quickly put it on, then ran outside. When she looked around the street, the girl in the motorcycle others wasn't there. There was no way to even know where she'd gone. It would be dangerous to run around trying to find her now. There was a chance that Tara would be attacked while she wasn't at the lab. Tara came outside as well. The bruises and wounds were bad enough, but the pain that ached in her heart was the worst of all. Tara straightened up her shirt sleeves. Suzu was caught completely off guard. True, her t-shirt only came down to just below her hips, roughly the length of a miniskirt. Her eyes were almost completely bared. The shirt's hem was turned up and she felt exposed. But Taro shook his head. Taro rubbed the part of his neck where the knife blade was. Hello, Avier. How is it going? Dang it, Avier. You had so many points. You had 3,000 points. You could have spent it in so many different ways. You could have done 3 stretches. You could have waited. You were almost to a juggle. You could have made me hydrate a bazillion times, because that's totally a real number. But no, you decided to waste your points. You could get this finger in your face. So I hope you're happy. You can have a hydrate as well. Five minutes? Is that might be my cooldown for it. Yeah, I don't like getting waterboarded, so... I mean, my bottle here, it's pretty big, and... during a stream I probably go through about half of this. I go through one of these a day. Yeah, I'm having a pretty good weekend. I just got back from just a mini vacation, and it's nice that, you know, I got back Friday evening, and I have a weekend to, like, you know, just also relax and not have to go back to work, so that's been nice. He was crying under that helmet after that whole battle with Suzuha while holding a knife to Utaru's neck. But why?
まだ早いんじゃね？
父さん。
の？
アイス買ってきてくれた？バニラ。
ああ、もちろん。
食べたいな。私ちょっと 疲れちゃ
Yeah, 'cause the last time I took like an actual vacation with the trip, I didn't go very far. I just like drove 2 hours away, kind of thing, to a cottage. But the last time I had like a trip like that, I got back and it was, I don't even remember. Basically, I had like under 12 hours until I had to be up for work the next day. It wasn't that much time. Then she almost fell forward. Tara managed to catch her before she hit the ground.
ごめん、平気。でも少しだけ休ませて。
That was all she had the energy to say. She closed her eyes in her dad's arms, and her consciousness melted away into an entirely different character. And it's now July 3rd. In July came, the sun shone down, even harder on eastern Japan. Summer was truly here. The news had been saying for days that the heat island effect might make this the hottest summer in years. And on the first Sunday in July, the arrivals lobby at the international terminal of Narita Airport was filled with foreigners and Japanese passengers returning home. I think this is the first actual different content we've had in this ending so far. All the rest was a duplicate of what was in the bad ending. The three of us were waiting for someone here. We got Lukaku saying, "Sorry, I can't go today," and we can say it's fine, no problem. You had something to do, it's alright. We're having a lot of people around would just bother Hiajo. So that's one. If people have a preference, we have first, it's fine, no problem. Second, you had something to do, it's alright. And third, having a lot of people around would just bother Hiajo. I'm kind of leaning for the second one, but if people have a preference, I'm open to it. So it doesn't actually change anything in this game at this point. Also, look at this, change the little menu and it doesn't put up the emoticon. Why is the emote face tiny and sad? Who wants their emote to look sad? Alright, I'm gonna go with number 2. I hope I can see Maho before she leaves. I'll ask her how long she's staying and contact you later. Thank you. Okay. We've been there almost an hour.
今の問題発言は彼女に見つけざるを得ないぞ。
冗談だ。やめてくれ。
でもなかなか来ないね。やっぱりサプライズでこっそり出迎えようとしたのが間違いだったのかにゃ。
せめて何時の便で到着するのかぐらいは聞いておくべきだったな。
We hadn't told her we were coming to greet her. So all we knew is that she was arriving at Narita on an afternoon flight. If I'd known we were going to have to wait so long, I would have tried to get the arrival time out of her. There was a stream of passengers flowing by us, but no sign of the person we were waiting for. Just as I was starting to wonder if we'd missed her because she was so small, she finally appeared. Or more precisely, I saw a giant travel suitcase rolling all by itself away from the gate. And from behind it I heard a voice I recognized.
パスポートの偽造なんかしてないわ。何なのよ。毎回どの国へ行ってもいちいち調べられて時間がかかって仕方ないわ。
I walked up to the suitcase and gave it a pat. Maho had been leaning forward and pushing the suitcase as hard as she could. Her mouth hung open when she saw me.
久しぶり。無事入国できてよかったな。
あなた。
なんか随分やつれてるな。大丈夫か？
大丈夫に決まって。って どうしてここに？
今日の昼に来るって話してただろ。だから驚かせようと思って迎えに来たんだ。
そうなの？それはどうも。
For some reason, her voice became really weird the moment she saw me. My being here really that much of a surprise?
でも秋葉原駅までは行けるから改札口に迎えに来てくれればいいって言っておいたのに。
まあいいじゃないか、せっかくだし。それに君一人で本当に秋葉まで来られるか心配だったから。
失礼ね、私はそんなに頼りなくないわ。
Mayuri and Ferris came up as well. 'As Mayuri grabbed Maho's hand, Ferris walked up and gave her a big hug.
マユリさんもフェイリスさんもお久しぶり。二人もわざわざ迎えに来てくれたのね。ありがとう。ちなみにこんな場所で大声でマホニャンと呼ぶのはやめてくれないかしら。にゃんでかわいいのに。周りを見なさい。みんなが笑っているでしょ。恥ずかしいのよ。にゃ、そうかにゃ。
Ferris really sticks out after all. While we've been waiting here, all the foreigners have been pointing at her and yelling, "Cat ears, cat ears." Someone even asked for pictures.
ヤジョさん、荷物俺が持とう。
いえ、ありがとう。
でも結構急な来日だったよな。
It was only a few days ago that I'd found out she was coming.
今回もレスキネン教授の手伝いなのか？
その
Ma was fidgeting and glancing up at me.
岡部さんはレスキネン教授とはよく連絡を取り合っているの？
ああ、教授ずっとこっちで研究を続けてるだろ。時々食事に誘ってもらったりしてるんだ。すごく光栄だよ。
そう。まずいわね。
まずい？何が？
ああ、いえ、こっちの話よ。
She really was acting weird. She wasn't like this when I saw her last winter. Was she tired from her trip? Was seeing us here that much of a
今
surprise?
回は教授の手伝いではないの。沖縄の親類のところへ行く予定なのよ。でもせっかくだからその前に秋葉原にも寄ってみようかと思って。
そうか、沖縄か。
For a moment, the name of that place brought back visions of that nightmarish time. After I collapsed on Christmas, I was sent to another world line where I'd spent a month fleeing to Okinawa.
いいね、沖縄。一度でいいから行ってみたいな。マユシーの学校は修学旅行は沖縄じゃないのや。マユシーのところはね、北海道だったよ。フェイリスはハワイにゃ。うわー、海外だ。アロハ。
Putting aside the girls and their talk of school
じゃあヒヤジョ
trips,
さんは東京にはそんなにいられないのか。残念だな。
そうね、そういうことになるわね。秋葉原にいる間のホテルとかは決めてあるのかにゃ？まだよ。これから安いビジネスホテルでも探すつもり。だったらこのままフェイリスのお家に来るといいにゃ。この前のお部屋自由に使ってもらって構わないにゃ。でもそんなの悪いわ。またそうやって遠慮するんやから、フェイリスは大歓迎だにゃ。だけどそんなに甘えるわけには。だったらこれでどうかにゃ。お部屋を無償で貸し出す代わりにフェイリスのお店でほんのちょっとだけお手伝いしてもらうのにゃ。お店？メイクインニャンニャンだね。まさかそれって あの猫耳のお店？
その通りにゃ。この時期は猫耳メイドのみんなはコミマの準備でいろいろ忙しいのにゃ。お休み取りたいって
Don't do it, Maho. It's not worth it.
つまり深刻な猫耳メイド不足なのにゃ。というわけで、マフニャンどうかにゃ。どうかにゃ。
Kairi, don't encourage her. Good call.
なんでって当たり前でしょ。私に似合うわけないわ。似合うよ。絶対に可愛いと思うな、マユシーは。
意義なしだにゃ。オカリもそう思うにゃ。
ああ、きっとファンがつくんじゃないか。
ファンなんてそんな。お世辞は嫌いよ。
別にお世辞じゃないんだけどな。
だとしたら視力検査にでも行ってくることね。
にゃにゃ。赤くなったにゃ。
なってません。
マホニャンはもっと自分の魅力に気づくべきだと思うにゃ。
マユシーが男の子だったらキュンってしちゃうのです。だからそんなことないと言ってるのに。
ヒアジョーさんは多分もうちょっとなんというかおしゃれとかしてみたらいいんじゃないかな。そうすればもっとこう。
I'm trying my best to sound encouraging, but just ended up sounding like a real jerk. Of course she was annoyed.
私は今のままで十分よ。研究が第一なんだから。
At least he realized he was being a jerk.
好きな人とかできたらどうするのにゃ。相手に気持ちを伝えられなくて困っちゃうにゃ。
大丈夫よ。そういう人なんてできないと思うから困ったりしないわ。
He gave a sigh that was a little too deliberate.
ごめんなさい。時差ボケと飛行機の疲れでちょっと。わ
かるにゃ。時差ボケって結構辛いんだにゃ。リムジンを用意してあるからマフニャンは眠っていくといいにゃ。
I've scolded 2 people, hero. Stop wasting all your money on scolds. Varys had rented a white limo to pick up Maho. Gee, she really did go overboard. But thanks to that, Mayuri and I were able to enjoy its big comfy seats on the way to Narita Airport. And you shouldn't do anything else that's scold-worthy. That's also not something you should do.
それともマユシーの膝がいいかにゃ。
マユシーはオッケーだよ。結構よ。子供じゃあるまいし。
でも傍目から見てもだいぶ疲れてるってわかるな。
Also made dinner?
そんなに研究が忙しいのか。
Glad to hear it. It's glad to have nice dinner. Maybe you should have eaten before you drank so much, though. and 2 more drinks. There's the drinks.
それはまあ掛け持ちしているわけだから。
掛け持ちというとアマデウス以外にも何かやっているのか。
Oh, is one of my mods here and wants to swing their sword? Thank you, Sams. Sams, I thought you weren't here. I'll pretend I didn't see that. She quickly put her hand over her mouth. So instead I'm going to thank Chaos. Thank you, Chaos, because Samus's wasn't here, and you were able to deftly swing your sword at the bot. Thank you.
そうか。それは悪かった。
It was true that American University Labs had a lot of stuff like that going on there. Thank you, Chaos. I'd heard there were a lot of industrial spies. She wasn't careful about what she said. She might get fired, or worse. It was a mistake on my part to even ask.
そ
You're the all-powerful being with no power in the itty-bitty living space.
橋田さんは今日はどうしたの？
あいつなら今日は人生をかけた大事な用があってな。
人生をかけた？
ダル君は今デート中なんだよ。
Maho's shock was almost comical.
私本当に疲れているのね。ひどい幻聴を聞いたわ。
いや、そう思うのも無理ないが。
本当にデートなのです。
信じられない。嘘でしょ？あの変態が。
Yeah, some anonymous mod is not even here. Even Maho was calling him a pervert. Darude said he was talking to Maho a lot too, and I could just imagine what their conversations were like. But actually, if Darude didn't do his best day, it would ruin the world's entire chain of causality. That since Darude's date today was an event with universe-spanning implications. About half the seats at Go-Go Curry were full. It was Sunday, but it was also after 2 p.m., and so the lunchtime rush was over. Suzu was sitting at the restaurant's far edge, a baseball cap pulled down over her face. She was hiding her face with the cap and carefully watching a couple sitting nearby. Wait, Hiro's writing a BL now? A cheerful employee put down 2 giant silver plates, or trays more accurately, in front of them. Suzu could see the other customers looking at them and whispering. The couple really stood out after all. The man was a giant who looked like he ate major curry all the time, but the woman was slim, pretty, and looked very kind. The combination of a huge man and slim woman was as unbalanced as the combination of a pretty girl and major curry. Major curry was big. It was huge. Suzu knew from experience. The massive silver trays were loaded with rice and curry, and topped with 2 fried cutlets, fried shrimp, sausage, a boiled egg, and a mountain of cabbage. There were 2 or 3 times as much curry as you'd find in a normal dish, and the toppings were just as big. Even a growing young boy would find it hard to eat them all. You're writing Chaos Popeye Beardy fanfic. I mean, as long as I am the Dom, I'm fine with this. Suzuha was irritated. Does Samus make a cameo appearance? Does Slavebeard make a cameo appearance? The Beauty and the Beast couple that Suzuha was watching, of course, was Ataru and Yuki. In the morning, they'd gone to see a movie in Yurakucho, and they'd come to Akihabara and gone straight to Go-Go Curry. Suzuha had followed them the whole time. Panic does too. That's why she couldn't believe Ataru's choice of date spots. Back to not being here. Okay, anonymous mod. Clutched her spoon tight and gritted her teeth. Suzuha knew next nothing about Japanese youth culture in 2011. And even she knew it was a bad idea. Who knew what was going through Yuki's mind, or so Suzuha thought. But... surprisingly, Yuki was ignoring the people around her and innocently enjoying the huge curry.
甘飯もし食べきれなかったら僕が食べてあげるですから。はい、
ありがとうございます。けど
throw some zeros in there.
結構いけるんですよ。
そうですか。びっくりです。
実はいつもお店の外でメニューだけ見てて一度食べてみたかったんですよね。連れてきてもらえて嬉しいです。
それは実に良かったです。
As long as Zero's not throwing us all in his boyfriend dungeon. Sousa had evidently worried over nothing, but she still realized that Taro was acting strangely. Ever since he'd come out of the movie theater, he was walking and talking strangely. Instead of his usual hunched posture, he was forcing himself to stand up straight. His every movement seemed oddly forced, as if he were a broken robot. And he downed glass after glass of water. Raccoon X Duck X Beard X Obi-Wan X Random Shirtless Man. Taro poured water into Yuki's cup. Sousa had a bad feeling. She was right. Taro was moving so awkwardly that he almost spilled water in her hand. Yuki quickly wiped down the table with her handkerchief and grabbed her fork and spoon. There were stars in her eyes. Just remember, Hiro, when you're done writing your fanfiction, you can make Zero read it out on his stream. If it's 500 characters or less. Yuki seemed to be really enjoying her meal, but Taro was very formal and quiet. He was taking little nibbles out of a piece of fried cutlet like a squirrel eating a nut. The whole time they weren't saying a word. Because believe me, Hiro, on my list of things to make Zero read out, bad fanfiction is there, and me and Deadbeard spent like a solid 30 minutes looking up bad fanfictions. Actually, let me see if I can find some of that conversation, because there was some interesting ones. How far back was this? This was fairly far back. Oh man. Am I able to search on mobile? Is that a feature? Oh, I found it. Here's just some of the things that we thought of making Zero read. The opening scene of Shrek with Shrek and Donkey. The B-movie script, which I have done. The KFC romance novel, Tender Wings of Desire. If you didn't know this, KFC officially commissioned one of those like cheesy romance novels where it's like the woman and the man without the shirt on like the cape as like the water splashes behind them. Lyrics to bad pop songs, like just basically have him rickroll all of chat. So some of the bad things we found. There is a porn version of the B movie, which is a fan fiction. There's some bad Harry Potter fanfics. This is a quote from one of them. This is just a quote about the fanfic itself. There's a fanfic out there in which the giant squid of Hogwarts Lake fucks the actual castle. The entire castle. This one is from a fanfiction where Dumbledore has sex with the Sorting Hat. Here's an actual line from that fanfiction. Albus reached into the hat and touched something hard. It wasn't the sword of Godric Gryffindor. So, there's some examples of just random stuff that we had looked up. If She decided to send him a message on Ryan telling him to get his act together. And she'd just taken out her phone when... The huge plate was laid on the table in front of her. The other customers started murmuring again. Come to think of it, when she'd followed them into the store, she just ordered her usual major curry with extra roe and then forgotten about it. Now everybody's going to focus on her. In a small shop like this, it was suicide. To start with, dumb fan fictions, just lyrics to pop songs that everyone hates. What else? Just dumb movie scripts, bad movie scripts. You could make him read the entire polka rap. Just as she expected, her eyes met Yuki's. Actually, making Zero rap is an interesting concept. He's sometimes on when we raid, so maybe we'll raid Zero and make him say dumb stuff. She realized that she should probably leave, but then she couldn't go without at least taking a bite of the major curry in front of her. Her experiences in the war had left her completely unable to waste food. She felt Yuki Nataru staring at her as she reluctantly picked up her spoon. And Hiro, well, while we're doing this, Moon is busy writing fanfic about Zero. I don't even know what it's with. It's just Zero and bad fanfic, and then she's gonna make him read it out, because Deadbeard and I are like, gave her the same instructions we gave you of like, write bad fanfic about Zero, you can make him read it. Her only choice was to finish her extra large curry as soon as possible. She couldn't let herself be in the way. Instead, Yuki came over and picked up Suzuha's plate. Yeah, you may have to turn it down to something that would actually be readable on stream. I did the same. I made Zero read the X3 Nuzzles Uwu, but I had to substitute a bunch of words to make it stream friendly. To be entirely honest, Amos, even if you weren't being here, it's about the time where you're starting to wind down for bed anyways. Before Suzuha could respond, Yuki moved her plate over to their table. She had no choice but to follow, but before she sat down, she whispered in Yuki's ear. Hogwarts Castle, didn't we just go over this? That's who's gonna get violated by the tentacles. Taro didn't react at all, even though she was sure he'd overheard that. Oh, could anime have at least one tentacle scene? For some reason, Yuki seemed incredibly enthused. Suzuha was overwhelmed by her energy.
知らないってば。そういうものなの兄さん。
But even when she turned to Ataru for help, he just awkwardly sat there eating his curry like a robot.
兄さん
He awkwardly turned his head to face her. The rest of him stayed completely still.
なんか言った。
どうしたのさ。なんかおかしいよ。
どうもしてないおかしくない
お。
Suzuha glanced back at Yuki. For the first time, Yuki looked concerned. In the end, Yuki and Suzuha did have their curry eating contest, and surprisingly, both of them completely finished their meals. Suzuha won by a very small margin, but the battle was exciting enough that not only the other customers, but the staff as well were applauding at the end. But the whole time, Ataru kept eating by himself. Since this wasn't even a conversation, let alone a date, she sent Ataru home alone. Part of her wanted to demand Ataru explain himself right now, but she decided to talk to Yuki instead. She tried her best to avoid Yuki so far, in order to keep her identity a secret, but it was July now. She would be gone from this era very soon. This might be her last chance to talk to Yuki at all. But also, Hiro, just saying. Octopus has 8 tentacles, and you only have Raccoon, Duck, Beard, Obi-Wan, Random Shirtless Man. 5 people so far, so I don't see a problem right now.
鈴葉さんがいてくれて助かりました。
Yuki sighed a little after Ataru left.
私、もしかしたら気に障るようなことをしちゃったのかもしれません。橋田さん、私といてもあんまり楽しくないみたいだったから。
At an MDS, we're still only at 6.
単に緊張してただけ。
But also, this seems like the kind of problem that you can just throw more octopi at and solve it.
でも映画を見る前は楽しそうにお話ししてくれてたんですよ。それが映画の後はすっかりよそよそしくなってしまって。
Dave Irish.
私何か間違っちゃったのかな。
Okay, well, we're now at the point where we need 2 octopi. Or we just have to take turns. Irish is the tentacles. It's not an octopus, it's just Cthulhu. He does have the onesie for it. What had happened inside the theater? Suzuha hadn't followed them inside. She spent about 2 hours killing time outside.
ゆきさんはなんで兄さんのこと好きになったの？いや、私が言うのもなんだけど、あんまりモテるタイプじゃないじゃん、兄さんって。鈴葉さんはお兄さんのことどう思います？私？好きですか？嫌いですか？好きですよね。見ていればわかります。
Cthulhu has the ability to summon tentacles.
まあ、
There were parts of him that she didn't like, but of course she loved her dad.
で、私のことは別にどうでもいいじゃないか。それで、ゆきさんは？私はまだ好きかどうかもよくわからないです。そっか。
Not only had Ataru not told Yuki he liked her, this was still their first date, and they hadn't spoken that much before either. She hadn't even reached the point where she saw him as a member of the opposite sex. For almost a year, Suzuha had stayed with him, and she, Mayuri, and Ferris had done everything they could to get the two of them together. There hadn't been any real progress. Suzuha felt uneasy when she thought about the future. Maybe her dad wouldn't be her dad anymore. Maybe her mom wouldn't be her mom anymore. Dad and mom wouldn't be together. She imagined that future.
そんなの嫌だ。
She looked straight into Yuki's eyes.
私さ、
Eyes.
もうすぐここからいなくなるんだ。え？ちょっと遠いところに引っ越すんだよね。そうなんですか？多分戻ってこないと思う。心配なんだ。父さん、兄さんのこと。だからさ、ユキさん、こんなこと私が頼むのもおかしな話なんだけど。
Then she bowed deeply.
橋田至をよろしくお願いします。
There was no answer from Yuki. Suzu looked up afraid and tried to gauge the expression on her face. She looked kind of lonely and kind of sad.
私はどうしたいんでしょうね。
Yuki whispered, and then Suzuha.
ああ、もうどうするんだよ。これじゃ破局の危機だよ。まだ始まってもいないけど。
As soon as she got back to the lab, she yelled at her useless father.
うおー、すずはごめんな。橋だけはもうダメなんだお。
しょぼくれてるんじゃない。シャレじゃ済まないんだ。とりあえず今日はなんであんな態度を取ったのかしっかり説明して。今朝出かけるときはあんなに楽しそうだったじゃないか。母さんだって映画の途中までは普通だったって言ってたし。一体何があったの？
いや、それがさ、聞いてくれよ。映画の座席って狭いじゃん。だから僕、天音氏の邪魔にならないようにと思ってできるだけ椅子の端っこに寄って座ってたんだよね。そしたら椅子がペキっていって壊れそうになって、で慌てて体を支えようとして肘掛けを掴んだんだけど、それが肘掛けじゃなくて天音氏のその手だったんだお。
そんなこと母さん一言も言ってなかったけど。
嘘じゃないよ。あの柔らかい感触は肘掛けのはずがない。女の子の手に決まってる。
そう。
ただ僕、女の子と手をつなぐなんて2次元ならともかく3次元じゃほとんど経験なくて。
それでどうしたの？
天音氏優しいからさ、僕を傷つけないようにと思ったのか、その手を振りほどかないんだお。僕ってこの体型じゃん。手汗とかかきまくりじゃん。ベッタベッタになるわけじゃん。なのに天音氏、何にも言わずそのままで。なんかそれからすごく意識するようになっちゃって。
ああ、なるほどね。それであんなにポンコツになってたのか。
天音氏もきっと心の中でキモいうざい話せ変態って思ってたに違いないよ。
母さんはそんな人間じゃないよ。
In fact, from the way she was acting, she probably thought she'd upset him somehow. The problem was what she'd said.
私はどうしたいんでしょうね。
What did she mean by that?
母さんがわからない。
すずは、こうなったら母さんのことは諦めて僕と二人で仲良く生きていこう。
言ってることがめちゃくちゃだよ。そもそも私はどうやって生まれてくればいいんだ。
でも無理だって。
父さんが頑張らないでどうするの？このピンチをチャンスに変えるんだよ。
She grabbed her father by the collar and shook him.
出ないと。
She remembered how sad he'd looked when they'd said goodbye.
出ないと取り返しがつかないことになるよ。
ですよね。
And then she heard a car park in front of the lab. She recognized the voice coming from below the open window.
お、フェイリスタンの声じゃね？
Suza let go of Ataru's collar and moved over to the window. Below she saw a group of people she knew. Ntaro Okabe, Mayuri Shina, Ferris Nyanyan, and Maho Hiyajo too.
ヒヤジョウさん、もう到着してたのか。でもなんでオカリンおじさんたちと一緒なんだろう。
Then she gave a start and turned back towards the room.
まずいよ、それ出しっぱなし。
え？
Suza pointed towards the desk in the development room where the phone wave, name subject to change to Unit 02, was sitting.
あ、やばいやばい、覚醒。
オキドキ。
Nothing else. This meant that Maho Hiyajo was coming to the future gadget lab. Suza hoped that this meant that the work on the phone wave would get back on track. And we're now in Vegan Altair. So, fun story. This wasn't even like 20 minutes. Okay. This wasn't even 20 minutes before a stream. I was looking up something completely unrelated to Steins Gate, and I came across Vegan Altair. So, I was like, what the heck is this? Like, why did I come across this? So, Vegan Altair are stars. They are stars in... I can't remember what the typical name for the constellation is, but the common name is the Summer Triangle, which only appears in the Northern Hemisphere. And this isn't something we've... I think I touched on this very briefly with one of the other bad endings, but each of the endings is related around a character. And this ending, the Vegan Altair ending, is related to Mayuri, who has a habit of reaching up at the stars, so it's only fitting that her ending is related to stars. That was something I didn't even know about until not even 15 minutes before the stream today. But now we got something happening here. There was a small explosion, the room filled with smoke. If you guys ban me after this, I don't blame you. Maho crawled out into the living room. Tara rushed to open the window, and she heard a man who was probably the building's owner yell up at them. Tara poked his head out and apologized to the man below. It took a minute, but the owner was finally satisfied and the argument ended. Tara wiped away the sweat. She saw that his face and clothes were both covered in soot. Maho was no different. Some of her hair had been burnt off. The white lab coat she'd gone through all the trouble to get had turned pitch black.
どういうことか説明して、なぜいきなり煙を吹いたの？
電子レンジが原因だと思われ、粗大ゴミで捨てられてたのを拾ってきたやつだから、どこかショートしたのかも。
拾ってきたって、あなたね。私たちが作ろうとしているのは人類史に名を残すレベルの大発明なのよ。なのになんで粗大ゴミを部品に使っているの？
業務用の電子レンジは高いのだぜ。
信じられない。私のクレジットカードを使ってもいいから なんとかしなさい。
Maho didn't have that much money, but this was no time to be cheap.
それは助かるよ。
Maho wiped her sweaty, soot-covered face with a towel. The white towel turned black immediately.
もう我慢できないわ。エアコンを入れるわよ。
それは無理。電話レンジカッコ仮2号機と一緒に稼働させるとブレーカーが落ちるんで。つうかそのエアコン電気代がとんでもないことになるから1日1時間しか使うの禁止って言ったっしょ。
These working conditions were abysmal. Was Krista really able to create the time leap machine under these conditions? Just thinking about it gave her even more respect for Krisu.
わかったわよ。でも髪まですすまみれだからシャワーを借りたいのだけれど。
どうぞどうぞ。
もしちょっとでも覗くような真似をしたらすぐに鈴葉さんに連絡す
Why
る
do
から。
why does this game have so many shower scenes?
そんなことしないって。
This is at least the 4th shower scene in this game. For some reason, Ataru responded to Maho's warnings by sighing and slumping his shoulders.
つうか僕は今そういう冗談に付き合っていられるほど心の余裕はないよ。
Maho hadn't meant it as a joke, she was extremely serious.
昇進の僕は今週はエロゲすら立ってる状態なんで。はあ
She'd heard from Susa that the day she'd arrived in Japan, Ataru had screwed up bad on a date. It was true that Ataru was a lot quieter than his usual self. Mayuri had even said that Ataru not playing H games must be an omen of some impending natural disaster. Either way, she didn't have time for his negativity, so she mostly ignored him and went to the shower room. Since Susa used the shower regularly, it was relatively clean. There was a good selection of body soap and shampoo, and Susa told her that she could use it as she liked.
まったくせっかくの七夕だっていうのになんでこんなすすまみれになってないといけないのかしら。
That day was indeed Tanabata. Actually, Maho had been secretly looking forward to this day. Since she'd lived in America for so long, she was interested in Japan's traditional summer holiday. She was especially interested in the famous story of Urahime and Hikoboshi, and the custom of writing down wishes and hanging them from bamboo. Hikoboshi, a man who appeared in the legend of Tanabata, in Japan Altair, the brightest star of the constellation Aquila, is known as the summer Hikoboshi star. Star Vega, or Urahime, is separated from Altair by the Milky Way, and the legend says that only on Tanabata can they cross it and come together. This was originally a Chinese legend. Urahime, a girl who appears in the legend of the Tanabata, the star Vega in the constellation Lyra, is known as Urahime's star. She was the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven and was given the name Urahime, weaving princess, because of her mastery of the loom. She is married to Hikoboshi, Natsuhiko, but the Emperor of Heaven decreed that they would only be allowed to meet once a year, on July 7th in the old Japanese calendar. Since she was here, she sort of wanted to try writing down a wish too. She didn't want to bring it up herself because she didn't want anyone thinking of her as childish. But Mayuri, Ferris, and the other girls seemed like they'd want to do something like that. Part of her had hoped they'd invite her too. That's why it hurt so much to be spending the hot summer afternoon in the lab with Ataru covered in soot. She was thinking about that as she washed herself off when... you hear Ataru calling her from outside. Maho's mind started to race. She'd been told that Okabe rarely came to the lab anymore. In fact, after he dropped her off here on the first day, he hadn't come by even once. That's why she'd felt safe going in and out of the lab, but...
のことバレないように気をつけて。
わかった。というか私ここにいたらまずいじゃない。フェイリスさんのマンションに戻って隠れていないと。だって本来なら私は今頃沖縄にいるはずなのよ。
That's how she'd explain her visit to Okabe. If you found out she was working on the phone wave with the Tar, there would be trouble.
あなたがそこにいたら出られないでしょ。
After she was sure Atara had gone, she quickly washed the bubbles from the body soap off her body. Her long hair still wasn't dry, but there wasn't time for that. She wiped herself off with the towel and was about to leave the shower room when she heard the door open. He was here already? She quickly shut the door to the shower room again. Then she looked down and saw that she was naked. Why? Why is this always something that happens? Her clothes were lying on the floor past the door. There was no way she could get them without Okabe seeing her. Her only choice was to stay hidden, completely undressed, and wait for him to leave.
でもこんなのすごくなんていうかそわそわして落ち着かない。
That seems like a good place to end it. Because now you get to have in your mind the whole time for next stream that there's just a girl waiting naked in the other room.